Have you ever heard someone whisper something that completely changed your world? Harper Lewis thought she knew where she stood with her CEO. Professional distance, stolen glances, nothing more. But when Evelyn Sharp walked past her on a cold November afternoon and murmured, "I guess I was too late," everything shifted. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The sidewalk was still wet from the morning rain when everything I thought I knew about my life crumbled with just 6 words. I was laughing so hard my stomach hurt. Zoe had just finished telling me about her disastrous first date in Seattle, complete with dramatic reenactment right there on Newberry Street. She threw her arms up, mimicking the guy who apparently tried to impress her by ordering wine in terrible French. And then, she gasped between giggles, he called the waiter garçon like we were in some cheesy movie. I doubled over. Stop, I can't breathe. The November air was crisp, biting at my cheeks, but I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Zoe had been my anchor in high school, the friend who knew all my secrets before I even knew them myself. Having her back in Boston felt like finding a piece of myself I'd forgotten existed. God, I missed this, I said, wiping tears from my eyes. I missed you. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like vanilla perfume and memories. I missed you too, Harp. We're never losing touch again, okay? I was about to respond when I heard the familiar click of expensive heels on concrete. My heart stopped. Evelyn Sharp was walking toward us, her long black coat billowing slightly in the wind. Even from a distance, she commanded attention. Her platinum blonde hair was pulled back in that perfect low bun she always wore, and her posture was ramrod straight. She looked like she'd stepped out of a boardroom and onto a magazine cover. My boss. My untouchable, brilliant, impossibly beautiful boss. Who's that? Zoe whispered, following my gaze. My CEO, I managed to say, my voice suddenly hoarse. Evelyn's pace slowed as she got closer. Her steel-gray eyes found mine for just a moment, and I saw something flicker across her face. Something I'd never seen before. Confusion? Pain? Her gaze shifted to Zoe, taking in our linked arms, our flushed cheeks from laughing, the obvious intimacy of old friends reunited. Zoe was still holding my hand from our hug, and I realized how it must look. Evelyn's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She walked past us without stopping, but as she did, I heard her voice, barely above a whisper. I guess I was too late. The words hit me like a physical blow. I turned to watch her retreating figure, my mind racing. Too late for what? What did she mean? Harper? Zoe's voice seemed to come from very far away. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost, but I couldn't respond. I was staring at Evelyn's back as she disappeared around the corner, those 6 words echoing in my head like a broken record. Too late. Too late. Too late. Harper! Zoe shook my arm gently. I blinked, focusing on her concerned face. Sorry, What? I asked if you're okay. You went completely white. I forced a smile. Yeah, just work stuff. You know how it is. But it wasn't work stuff. It was the way Evelyn's voice had cracked slightly on the word late. It was the vulnerability I'd glimpsed in her eyes before she'd shuttered them again. It was the realization that maybe, just maybe, all those lingering looks and charged silences in the office meant something more than I'd ever dared to hope. Come on, Zoe said, linking her arm through mine again. Let's get coffee. You can tell me about this mysterious CEO of yours. As we walked toward the cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. The woman I'd been secretly in love with for 2 years had just revealed a crack in her perfect armor, and I had no idea what to do about it. I couldn't concentrate on anything Zoe was saying. We'd been sitting in the coffee shop for 20 minutes, and she was telling me about her new job in graphic design, but all I could think about was the look on Evelyn's face, the way her voice had broken. Earth to Harper, Zoe said, waving her hand in front of my face. Seriously, what's going on? You've been in another world since we saw your boss. I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, using the warmth to ground myself. It's complicated. Try me. Where could I even start? How could I explain that I'd been harboring feelings for a woman who barely acknowledged my existence outside of work? that every morning I spent an extra 10 minutes getting ready, hoping she'd notice, that I'd memorized her coffee order, her schedule, the way she tapped her pen when she was thinking. I think I might have feelings for her, I said quietly. Zoe's eyebrows shot up. Your CEO? Harper, that's insane, I know. I buried my face in my hands. She's brilliant, successful, completely out of my league, and my boss. It's a disaster waiting to happen, but you think she might feel something too? I looked up. I don't know. Maybe? There are these moments, like when she stays late and finds excuses to come to my desk, or when she remembers little things I've mentioned. But then she's so professional, so distant. Until today. Until today, I agreed. Zoe leaned forward, her expression serious. Harper, what exactly did she say? I guess I was too late. The words still sent shivers down my spine. And she said this after seeing us together? I nodded. Zoe sat back, a slow smile spreading across her face. Oh my God. What? She's jealous. She thinks we're together. My heart started racing. That's ridiculous. We were just hugging. Harper, think about it. She sees you with another woman, looking happy and intimate, and suddenly she's talking about being too late. She's been waiting for the right moment to make a move, and she thinks she missed her chance. The possibility hit me like lightning. Could Zoe be right? Had Evelyn been feeling the same tension, the same longing? But what if you're wrong? I asked. What if I'm reading too much into it? Then you'll know for sure instead of spending the rest of your life wondering. My phone buzzed. A text message. From Evelyn. My hands shook as I opened it. Harper, could you please come in early tomorrow? I need to discuss the Morrison account with you. 7 a.m. Thank you. Who is it? Zoe asked, noticing my expression. Her. She wants to meet tomorrow morning. Early. See? She can't wait until normal business hours. She needs to see you. I stared at the message, reading it over and over. Evelyn never texted me directly. She usually went through her assistant or sent emails. And 7 a.m.? The office didn't even open until 8:30. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. Do what? Face her. Knowing what I know now, feeling what I feel. Zoe reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Harper, you're one of the strongest people I know. You've been carrying this torch for 2 years. Don't you think it's time to find out if she's been carrying one too? I thought about Evelyn's face today. The vulnerability, the pain. Maybe Zoe was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Okay, I said, my voice barely audible. I'll go. But as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow morning would change everything between us, for better or worse. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evelyn's face, the way her composure had cracked for just a moment. The pain in her voice when she'd whispered those words. By 6:30 a.m., I was already dressed and standing outside the office building, my hands shaking from nerves and too much coffee. The November morning was gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. The security guard let me in with a knowing smile. Early meeting with Ms. Sharp? Something like that, I managed. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt eternal. When the doors opened, the office was eerily quiet. Most of the lights were still off, casting long shadows across the empty cubicles. Evelyn's corner office glowed like a beacon. I walked slowly down the hallway, my heels clicking against the polished floor. Through her glass walls, I could see her silhouette. She was standing by the window, looking out at the city. I knocked softly. Come in. Her voice was different, softer than usual. I opened the door and stepped inside. She didn't turn around immediately, and I had a moment to study her. She was wearing a navy blue dress that hugged her figure perfectly, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of in its usual bun. She looked vulnerable. Thank you for coming so early, she said, finally turning to face me. Our eyes met, and I felt that familiar electric jolt. But this time, she didn't look away. Of course, I said. You mentioned the Morrison account? A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. There is no Morrison account issue, Harper. My heart stopped. What? She walked to her desk, her movements graceful but tense. I needed an excuse to see you, to talk to you, alone. The air in the room suddenly felt thick. I could hear my own heartbeat. About yesterday, she continued, not quite meeting my eyes now. I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I do. She looked up sharply. I've been unprofessional. And I'm sorry. Unprofessional? My mind raced. I don't understand. She took a deep breath, and I watched her armor slip another notch. The woman you were with yesterday, she seemed important to you. Zoe? I was genuinely confused. She's my friend from high school. She just moved back to Boston. Something shifted in Evelyn's expression. Relief? Hope? Your friend? She repeated slowly. Yes. My friend. I took a step closer. Evelyn, what did you mean yesterday, when you said you were too late? She closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, they were filled with an emotion I'd never seen before. Fear. I meant, she said quietly, that I thought I'd waited too long to tell you how I feel. The world tilted. How you feel? My voice was barely a whisper. She stood up, moving around the desk until she was just a few feet away from me. Harper, I've been fighting this for months. You're my employee. It's inappropriate. It could ruin both our careers, but I can't stop thinking about you. The words tumbled out like a confession. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. How you always remember to ask about my mother when she's having her treatments. The way you light up when you talk about something you're passionate about. I felt tears prick my eyes. Evelyn, I know it's wrong. I know I shouldn't feel this way about someone who works for me. But when I saw you yesterday, looking so happy with someone else, I realized I couldn't keep pretending anymore. She was close enough now that I could smell her perfume. Something expensive and subtle that made my head spin. You weren't pretending, I said. I felt it too. The tension, the looks, the way you find excuses to come to my desk. Her eyes widened. You noticed? I noticed everything. I took another step closer. Evelyn, I've been in love with you for 2 years. The words hung in the air between us like a bridge. Neither of us was sure we should cross. 2 years? She whispered. Since my first day. When you spent an hour explaining the company culture to me instead of having your assistant do it. When you remembered I was nervous and brought me coffee. I remember that day, she said softly. I remember thinking you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. We were so close now I could see the flecks of blue in her gray eyes. What do we do now? I asked. Before she could answer, we heard the elevator ding down the hallway. Someone else was coming into the office. We sprang apart like we'd been burned. Evelyn quickly moved back behind her desk, running her hands through her hair to smooth it. I grabbed a random file from her desk, pretending to study it as footsteps approached down the hallway. Good morning, Ms. Sharp. It was Janet from accounting, always the first one in after Evelyn. Her cheerful voice carried through the glass walls. Morning, Janet, Evelyn called back, her voice perfectly composed again. The transformation was remarkable. In seconds, she'd rebuilt her professional mask. But I could see her hands trembling slightly as she shuffled papers on her desk. I should go, I whispered, still clutching the file. Harper, wait. She looked up at me, and for a moment, her mask slipped again. We need to finish this conversation. When? Tonight. My place. She scribbled an address on a piece of paper. 8 o'clock? I nodded, not trusting my voice, and slipped the paper into my pocket. The rest of the day was torture. I couldn't focus on anything. Every email felt impossible to write. Every phone call was a struggle, and every time I caught a glimpse of Evelyn through her glass office, my heart raced all over again. She was back to her usual self, commanding, professional, untouchable, but now I knew it was an act. Now I knew what lay beneath that perfect exterior. Around lunchtime, Zoe texted me. How did it go? I'm dying here. I stared at my phone, not sure how to respond. How could I explain that my entire world had shifted in the span of 30 minutes? Can't talk now. We'll call you later. That good or that bad? That complicated. By 5 p.m. I was a nervous wreck. I'd changed my outfit 3 times, applied and reapplied my makeup, and stress-eaten half a bag of pretzels. Evelyn's apartment was in Back Bay, in one of those elegant brownstones that probably cost more than I made in 5 years. I stood outside the front door at exactly 8 p.m., my heart hammering against my ribs. She answered on the first knock. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a soft gray sweater. Her hair was still down, and she looked younger somehow, more approachable. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. The tension from this morning was still there, crackling between us like electricity. "Come in," she said finally, stepping aside. Her apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Elegant, minimalist, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Charles River, and everything was decorated in shades of white and gray. "Wine?" she asked. "Please." She poured 2 glasses of red wine, her movements careful and precise. When she handed me mine, our fingers brushed, and I felt that familiar jolt. "So," she said, settling onto the couch beside me. Not too close, but close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "So," I echoed. "This morning was intense," I finished. She smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all day. "That's one word for it. Evelyn, I need to ask you something. Anything. Are you sure about this? About us? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back." She set down her wine glass and turned to face me fully. "Harper, I've been thinking about crossing this line for months. The only thing I'm not sure about is whether you really want to cross it with me. Are you kidding?" I laughed, but it came out shaky. "I've been dreaming about crossing this line since the day I met you, even though it could complicate everything. Your job, our working relationship. Especially because of that," I said honestly. "The forbidden aspect just makes it more intense." She leaned closer, and I could smell her perfume again. "Harper." "Yes. I'm going to kiss you now." "Okay," I whispered. She reached up and cupped my face in her hands, her thumbs stroking my cheekbones. Her touch was gentle but sure, and when she leaned in, I felt like I was falling. Our lips met softly at first, tentative, questioning, but when I kissed her back, something ignited between us. 2 years of suppressed longing poured into that kiss, making it desperate and hungry and perfect. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Wow," I whispered. "Wow," she agreed, but just as she leaned in to kiss me again, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's my mother." As she answered the phone, I heard her voice change completely. "Mom, what's wrong?" And from the look on her face, something was very wrong indeed. "What do you mean collapsed?" Evelyn's voice was sharp with panic as she paced across her living room. I sat frozen on the couch, watching her face grow paler with each word. "When? How long ago?" She ran her free hand through her hair. No, I'm coming now. Don't let them discharge her until I get there." She hung up and turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. "I have to go. My mother had another episode. She's at Mass General." "Of course," I said, standing immediately. "Go." "Is there anything I can do? She looked lost, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "I don't know. She's been fighting cancer for 8 months, and the treatments, they're not working anymore." My heart broke for her. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have gone with her to today's appointment instead of staying late at work. Instead of," she gestured helplessly between us. "Hey." I stepped closer, taking her hands in mine. "This isn't your fault. You couldn't have known. Couldn't I?" Her voice cracked. "She's been getting weaker for weeks. I've been so distracted lately, so focused on—" She looked at me with something that might have been regret. The words hit me like a slap. "Focused on what? On me?" She pulled her hands away. "I need to go." "Evelyn, wait," but she was already grabbing her keys and coat, her walls slamming back into place. The vulnerable woman who'd kissed me minutes ago was gone, replaced by the ice-cold CEO I knew from work. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said without looking at me. "Will you?" She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. "Harper, this was a mistake." The words gutted me. "A mistake?" My mother is dying, and I'm here playing house with my employee. What kind of daughter does that make me? It makes you human, I said desperately. Evelyn, you can't blame yourself. I can, and I do. She opened the door. Please lock up when you leave. And then she was gone, leaving me standing alone in her perfect apartment with the taste of her kiss still on my lips and the echo of her words ringing in my ears. A mistake. I sank back onto the couch, my hands shaking. Everything had happened so fast. The confession, the kiss, the phone call. One moment we were finally crossing the line we'd been dancing around for 2 years, and the next, she was calling it a mistake. I finished my wine in one gulp, then hers too. My phone buzzed. Zoe. How's the big romantic evening going? I stared at the message, not sure how to respond. How could I explain that the best and worst moments of my life had happened within the span of an hour? It's over, I typed back. My phone rang immediately. What do you mean it's over? Zoe's voice was sharp with concern. She called it a mistake, Zoe. We kissed, and then her mom had a medical emergency, and she blamed herself for being distracted by me. Oh, honey, I'm such an idiot. Tears were streaming down my face now. I actually thought she felt the same way. I thought we had a chance. Harper, she's scared and dealing with a family crisis. People say things they don't mean when they're panicking. No, she meant it. You should have seen her face. She looked at me like I was the worst decision she'd ever made. I walked to her window, looking out at the city lights blurred through my tears. I have to see her at work tomorrow, Zoe. How am I supposed to face her after this? Maybe you should take a sick day, give yourself some time to process. And prove that I can't handle a professional relationship? That I'm just some lovesick employee who can't separate business from personal feelings? I laughed bitterly. No, I'll go in tomorrow and pretend none of this happened, just like she will. Harper, I have to go. I need to get out of here before I do something really stupid like wait for her to come back. I hung up and grabbed my coat. As I was leaving, I noticed a framed photo on her side table that I hadn't seen before. Evelyn with an older woman who had the same gray eyes and sharp cheekbones. Her mother, obviously taken before the cancer. They were both smiling, and Evelyn looked genuinely happy. The guilt hit me like a truck. Here I was, feeling sorry for myself, when Evelyn was at the hospital watching her mother fight for her life. What kind of person did that make me? I locked the apartment and left the key under her doormat with a note. I hope your mother is okay. Take all the time you need. H. The walk home was cold and miserable, matching my mood perfectly. By the time I reached my apartment, I'd made a decision. Tomorrow I would go to work and act like nothing had happened. I would be professional, competent, and completely unaffected by whatever had transpired between us, even if it killed me. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop replaying her words. This was a mistake. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been fooling myself all along. Maybe some lines were never meant to be crossed. Evelyn didn't come to work the next day, or the day after that. By Thursday, the office was buzzing with whispers. Janet from accounting mentioned that Evelyn's assistant had canceled all her meetings for the week. Someone else heard she was dealing with a family emergency. I threw myself into work with manic intensity, staying late every night and arriving early every morning. If I kept busy enough, I could almost forget the taste of her kiss. Almost. Zoe had been checking on me constantly, bringing coffee and takeout, and trying to convince me to talk about what happened. But what was there to say? I'd misread the situation, made a fool of myself, and now I had to live with the consequences. Friday afternoon, I was deep in a marketing report when I heard familiar heels clicking down the hallway. My heart stopped. Evelyn was back. I kept my eyes glued to my computer screen as she walked past my desk, but I could feel her presence like electricity in the air. She looked tired, I noticed from my peripheral vision. Her usually perfect appearance was slightly rumpled, her hair not quite as sleek as usual. She disappeared into her office and closed the door. For the next 2 hours, I watched people go in and out of her office. Her assistant, the head of sales, the CFO, everyone except me, which was fine. I didn't want to see her anyway. Liar. At 6 p.m., The office started emptying out. I stayed at my desk, determined to finish the report I'd been working on all week. Anything to avoid going home to my empty apartment where I'd just replayed Tuesday night over and over again. Harper? I looked up to find Evelyn standing beside my desk. Up close, I could see the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. Hi? I said carefully. Could I speak with you? In my office? Every instinct told me to say no, to make an excuse and leave. But I was still her employee, and she was still my boss. Of course. I followed her into her office, my heart pounding. She closed the door behind us and gestured to the chair across from her desk. The same chair where this whole mess had started on Tuesday morning. How's your mother? I asked, because it seemed like the right thing to say. Stable. For now. She sat down heavily. Harper, I owe you an apology. You don't? I do. She looked directly at me for the first time since Tuesday. What I said to you, the way I left things, it was unfair. I kept my expression neutral. You were dealing with a crisis. I understand. Do you? She leaned forward. Because I'm not sure I understand it myself. Evelyn, you made yourself clear. It was a mistake. We got caught up in the moment, and it wasn't a mistake. The words hung in the air between us. What? The kiss. The feelings. None of it was a mistake. She ran her hands through her hair, but the timing was terrible and I panicked. I stared at her, not sure what to say. My mother asked about you. She continued quietly. She what? When I got to the hospital, after they stabilized her, she asked why I looked so upset. So I told her about you. My heart started racing. You told her about me? I told her I'd fallen in love with someone I work with and that I'd probably ruined everything by being a coward. Fallen in love. And what did she say? Evelyn smiled for the first time since she'd been back. She said life's too short to waste time being scared of happiness. Smart woman. She is. She also said she wants to meet you. I blinked. She wants to meet me? Harper, I know I hurt you. I know I made you feel like what happened between us didn't matter, but it did matter. It matters more than anything. She stood up and walked around the desk, stopping just in front of my chair. I'm in love with you, she said simply. I have been for months, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. I looked up at her, searching her face for any sign that she might change her mind again. What about work? What about the complications? We'll figure it out. Together. She held out her hand. If you'll have me. I stared at her outstretched hand, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to take it, to let myself believe that this could work. But another part of me was terrified of getting hurt again. Evelyn. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I handled everything wrong. But Harper, what we have, it's worth fighting for. I thought about the past 3 days. The misery, the regret, the constant ache in my chest. Then I thought about Tuesday night, about the way she'd looked at me before her phone rang, the way she'd kissed me like I was the only thing that mattered. Slowly, I reached out and took her hand. Okay, I whispered. Okay? Okay, let's figure it out together. She pulled me to my feet and into her arms, holding me tight against her chest. I could hear her heart beating fast, matching my own. I missed you, she whispered into my hair. I missed you too. But as we stood there holding each other, I couldn't shake the feeling that our problems were just beginning. 6 months later, I was standing in the same hospital where everything had almost fallen apart. But this time, I wasn't alone. Evelyn's hand was warm in mine as we walked down the corridor toward her mother's room. Margaret Sharp had been in remission for 3 months now, and today she was finally being discharged. You ready for this? Evelyn asked, squeezing my hand. Are you kidding? I've been looking forward to this for weeks. It was true. Over the past 6 months, Margaret had become like a second mother to me. She was sharp, funny, and completely unimpressed by her daughter's CEO status. She also had a talent for embarrassing Evelyn with stories from her childhood, which I found endlessly entertaining. Harper. Margaret's face lit up when we entered her room. Thank goodness you're here. Evelyn's been fussing over me all morning like I'm made of glass. I have not been fussing, Evelyn protested, but she was smiling. She reorganized my medications 3 times, Margaret stage whispered to me. 3 times, I laughed. Sounds about right. She color-coded my spice rack last week. I was being helpful, Evelyn said defensively. You were being neurotic, I corrected, kissing her cheek. The past 6 months hadn't been easy. We'd had to navigate office politics, HR policies, and more than a few raised eyebrows. Evelyn had ultimately decided to step back from day-to-day operations and focus on strategic planning, which meant we no longer had a direct reporting relationship. It also meant she was happier and less stressed, which was a win for everyone. There had been challenges, of course. Learning to separate work from personal life, dealing with gossip and speculation from colleagues, figuring out how to be a couple when we'd spent so long being boss and employee, but we'd worked through it all together. So, Margaret said as we helped her gather her things. Have you 2 set a date yet, Mom? Evelyn warned. What? I'm just asking. I'm not getting any younger, you know. I caught Evelyn's eye and grinned. We'd been talking about moving in together, but Margaret was clearly thinking bigger picture. We're taking things 1 step at a time, I said diplomatically. Margaret didn't look convinced. Well, just remember what I told you, Evelyn. Life's too short to waste time being scared. As we drove Margaret home to her apartment in Cambridge, I thought about how much had changed since that cold November afternoon when everything started. The woman sitting next to me was still brilliant, still driven, still occasionally neurotic about organization. But she was also softer now, more open. She laughed more. She worried less about maintaining perfect control. And she loved me. Completely, openly, without reservation. Penny for your thoughts? She asked as we pulled into Margaret's driveway. Just thinking about how we got here. Any regrets? I looked at her, really looked at her. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual business attire. She looked relaxed, happy, like the woman I'd glimpsed that first morning in her office. Only one, I said. Her face fell slightly. What's that? I regret that it took us so long to figure it out. Her smile could have powered the entire city. Well, we have plenty of time to make up for it. Is that a promise? That's a guarantee. As we helped Margaret into her apartment, I caught sight of a framed photo on her mantel. It was from last month. Evelyn, Margaret, and me at the company picnic. We were all laughing at something Zoe had said. She and Margaret had become fast friends, and Evelyn's arm was around my waist. We looked like a family. You know, Margaret said, following my gaze, I always knew Evelyn would end up with someone special. I just never imagined it would be someone who could make her laugh like that. Like what? Like she doesn't have the weight of the world on her shoulders. Later that evening, as we sat on Evelyn's couch, our couch now, I'd officially moved in last month, I thought about Margaret's words. Do I really make you laugh? I asked. Evelyn looked up from her book. What? Your mom said I make you laugh like you don't have the weight of the world on your shoulders. She set down her book and pulled me closer. You do more than that. You make me feel like I can put the weight down sometimes. Like I don't have to carry everything alone. You don't, I said, kissing her softly. Not anymore. I love you, Harper Lewis. I love you too, Evelyn Sharp. As we settled back into comfortable silence, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best things in life happened when you least expected them. Sometimes a whispered confession on a busy sidewalk could change everything. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, the person you'd been secretly in love with turned out to be secretly in love with you too. Make sure to subscribe for more stories like this one, and let me know in the comments what you thought of Harper and Evelyn's journey. Love always finds a way, doesn't it?